And we welcome you to a special live hour of Newsmax Now. We're standing by for a major announcement. Those were the words used by Ted Cruz's campaign earlier today. We expect the Texas Senator to announce Carly Fiorina as his pick for running mate, possibly a vice presidential pick. Texas Senator and the former Hewlett-Packard CEO are both in Indianapolis right now, a state that's likely to be Cruz's possible last chance to stop Donald Trump.
And as always, we want to hear from you. We're taking your calls now, so please call in. The number is there on your screen, 877-NEWSMAX. Again, it's 877-639-7629.
And welcome. You can check your clocks. It's really 4 o'clock. It's not 5 o'clock. Miranda,
Eastern
John
time.
Bachman, J.D. Hayworth joining us. We're standing by waiting for the big announcement from Ted Cruz. We do expect him to announce Carly Fiorina to be his vice presidential pick.
Yeah, they're getting the stage together for that. I know they're calling this a major announcement, but this is pretty much what everyone suspected. But the timing of this, J.D., you know all about politics.
You picked out the key word, timing.
Timing.
Right.
And I'll explain why. Because earlier today in Washington, D.C., there was Donald Trump pronouncing what we can call the Trump Doctrine, what he will do as commander-in-chief in terms of national security and foreign policy. And it was so serious a speech, it was delivered via teleprompter, but with the kind of trademark Donald Trump presentation. So the question becomes, in every campaign, but especially in presidential politics, did you win the day? Donald Trump seems to win day after day in terms of media buzz and media coverage. Take a look at what just happened yesterday with the 5 East Coast primaries going to Trump in convincing fashion. Ted Cruz needs a game changer. That is why, if these reports are accurate, we can understand why he is naming a running mate this far out from the convention and picking a former CEO, a former candidate for the U.S. Senate from California, Carly Fiorina. And of course, someone who also ran for the presidency was in this campaign earlier.
Right. She announced in May, I believe, of 2015. So you mentioned game changer. Is this really a game changer for him? Because a lot of people suspected that he would pick Carly. How big of a help is Carly going to be for him on the campaign trail?
If not a game changer, it's a subject changer. It creates the buzz. It'll be interesting as we follow what is trending on Twitter and other social media sites, the announcement, what it means picking Fiorina, despite the fact that people say, well, you know, folks never vote for the number 2 choice, still in a campaign. For Republican activists, for conservatives, it will set off a lot of discussion. And in addition to being an important part of the Cruz campaign, really not so much for Indiana, but later on June 7th in California, in addition to that, the notion is steal the spotlight from Donald Trump and his speech where he tries to really establish his bona fides as a future commander-in-chief.
When you look at the Cruz campaign, you see what they've been able to do with their organization. Clearly, this was a very organized and calculated media play today. It's stealing a page from Donald Trump's playbook, trying to get this earned media. Very early this morning, the whispers start to come out. Cruz is going to make a major announcement. Then he does a quick press availability, says, yeah, I'm going to make a major announcement later on the day. You see everybody starting to cite sources. Clearly, there were some leaks there to keep the story going. And then at 4 o'clock here any minute, we're going to get the actual announcement itself. And as you mentioned, JD, this is meant to win the day. The question, though, becomes what happens tomorrow? How do they continue with this strategy? What do you see as the next step?
What they do tomorrow is they make sure that Carly Fiorina, and this is almost going to sound counterintuitive, but tomorrow, you better believe the Cruz people will try to put Carly Fiorina into the most visible assignment she can have. Who knows? Thinking out loud, why they'd be wise to come here to Newsmax TV. But imagine sending her back into the lion's den at ABC's The View. Anything to generate buzz and to have a clear contrast. And when you get on, I'm sorry, with the loudmouth lady leftists of The View, you have a great situation there where Carly is able to shine as a well-spoken, articulate, conservative woman who can take the fight to the prevailing leftists in so many areas of our country and our dominant media culture.
Well, I imagine, go ahead. Meredith.
You mentioned the keyword woman, and that's kind of been her strength because she can attack Hillary in a way that I don't think most men can.
Well, it does take away the gender card. And the thing about Carly, you think back to those earlier debates, Miranda, there was a situation where Carly went into those at the kids' table and distinguished herself. Now, it is interesting because it was almost like desert rain, where the rain comes down and quickly the buzz evaporates. But there was a time in this 2016 campaign when she was the rising star. She was not able to sustain it, which led to our talk a long time ago that she might end up in a number 2 role, and it's something that has occurred to other conservative women. Phyllis Schlafly, now a backer of Donald Trump, she says Trump for president, Ted Cruz for the Supreme Court. But I can remember when we talked to Phyllis last year, and she said, you know, Carly is really very good and very impressive, and she could be a vice presidential pick for somebody. And today, if all these reports are to be believed, she in just mere moments will become the running mate of Senator Ted Cruz.
In fact, let's go ahead and take a live look into Indianapolis. We're expecting them to speak. We can see the anticipation building on the stage here. You get the kids in the background, the American flag, all the accoutrement is there. JD, going back to the media strategy, I would have to imagine getting her out in front. If the Cruz campaign has done their homework, she'll be on the morning shows in the morning, probably do The View mid-morning, and then hit the live cable news circuit in the afternoon. And we'll stand by. I'm
and
sure
of course, we're very happy to have Carly back on our air, and it'd probably be a wise move for the Cruz people, because the real problem for Ted, and we saw it in the South where it was expected that evangelicals would flock to his candidacy. That did not happen. At this stage of the campaign, how do you reinvigorate doctrinaire conservatives to become part of the Cruz team? And how do you also reach out, dare we say it, to suburban housewives? And this offers that combination, that 1-2 punch. Someone who is a well-spoken conservative, someone who, yes, quite obviously is a woman, a well-spoken, thoughtful woman who has held positions of responsibility. It's a solid pick, but the question comes, even though historically this will be early for announcing a running mate, is it early enough to make the difference, to move the needle, to cement Indiana in the Cruz column? And then looking ahead to June 7th in California, is this the key? And quite frankly, despite the talents of these two candidates, Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina, I just must tell you, I have my doubts about that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you mentioned, we talked about Carly Fiorina possibly being helpful to Cruz in California, but is Indiana a make or break for Ted Cruz at this point? Because it appears to me that it would be.
I don't know if it's make or break, but it is a chance to erect another speed bump for Donald Trump. Right now, Trump has all the momentum on his side. And when you're in this situation where Trump has reeled off impressive wins in his home state of New York, and then last night going 5 for 5 in his backyard, Ted can't do it alone. Ted can't go out and say, well, Donald Trump may win a few more states. This is what the Cruz campaign is hoping will be a sea change, taking away the momentum from Trump, not only today, but as the campaign continues. And we might also point out, John Bogman, you have made mention of just how effective the Cruz campaign has been on the ground. You've already told us you've laid out a media strategy for tomorrow and the day after, but also understand, just in terms, the old saying is, you can't be two places at once. Or I remember the late, great Charlie Norwood of Georgia's 10th district. He'd pull out his itinerary and say, my schedule says I'm supposed to be at 3 places here at 10:30. 2 of those groups are going to be disappointed or excited, depending on how they feel about me. Listen, it becomes a force multiplier. You can literally have the campaign in 2 places at once. And so Carly, not only about Hillary, but Carly, who, let's remember that early contretemps with Donald Trump about her looks and all of that, she came out of that pretty well at that point in time in the campaign. And so before she focuses on Hillary,
Yeah.
She is going to make Donald Trump her target for the foreseeable future.
All right, we have a caller joining us. We'd like to get to this caller. Joe from Oregon is calling in. Joe, you got a question or comment? You want to talk about Carly Fiorina?
Yes, she's a terrible pick. She would like to go to war everywhere. Syria, Libya. She wants to get in Russia's face. She acts like she wants to start bombing Russia in 5 minutes.
Well, now, wait a minute. Bombing Russia in 5 minutes, that was Ronald Reagan's line when he was doing a mic check. Where are you getting this stuff from, Joe?
From her everything she's always said on foreign policy. Oh, Obama should have stepped over the red line in Syria. We should have never gotten involved there in the first place.
Well, but is that Carly's fault? The point was, and this is a point that Donald Trump echoed earlier today, Joe, the President of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama, drew that line in the sand and then tried to erase it. Look, we can argue about the practicality of an interventionist foreign policy, but to attribute to Carly Fiorina every casual statement in history, which there's no way to sugarcoat it, Joe, is highly inaccurate, I believe is unfair. If you don't like her foreign policy based on an interventionist stance, we hear you. But let's not try to blame Carly Fiorina for the sins of Barack Hussein Obama.
I wasn't doing that. She was ridiculous to bring it up because it was ridiculous for us to even be there in the first place.
Well, let me ask you
So,
this.
Joe, I want to
Go
ask you
ahead.
who you're for. So who are you for?
Donald Trump, absolutely.
Well, but while we got you, who would you like to see
Right.
Trump pick as number 2, Joe?
Walter Jones of North Carolina. He's the one that wrote the bill to release the 28 pages about the Saudi Arabian involvement in 9/11.
He is
Walter
one of my
Jones.
closest
Yeah.
friends and a great guy. And as Joe was talking about, and we'll give Joe some credit, Joe was outlining how he doesn't like to see an interventionist foreign policy. And Walter Jones was one of the first Republicans to do a 180. He voted for the Bush-Iraq resolution, as did I. But about a year in, Walter Jones said, we made a mistake going into Iraq. And if you take a look at Walter's district, with a Cherry Point Marine Air Station, so many military installations, it was a step arguably out of step somewhat
Right.
with the military presence in his district. It brought the scorn from the Washington crowd. And so I understand where Joe is coming from. That would be an intriguing pick to have the likes of Walter B. Jones on the Trump ticket.
And we want to remind everybody we're still taking calls. Give us a call right now if you're trying to get through but can't. Don't worry, we'll get to you shortly. The number is there on your screen, 877 Newsmax. You heard what we thought. You heard what Joe thought. Do you agree? What do you think about Carly Fiorina? We want you to share your thoughts with us.
All right, we are still standing by. If we can take another live look in Indianapolis right now, we're standing by. Carly Fiorina is expected to be announced very shortly here by Ted Cruz as his pick to be his vice presidential running mate. Will it help him? That's the question. You can see the crowd. You got the warm-up guys out there. They're waving the American flags. We can expect an announcement any moment here. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with this live announcement, the major announcement for Ted Cruz, coming up for you in just a few minutes. Stick around.